Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a session where we're going to have a great interaction with regards to the recent benefits that are going around the COVID pandemic. Proudly presented to you by Allsec Technologies, which focuses on building lasting relationships in collaboration with the Quess Group of companies, which believes in winning together. Now, in the recent pandemic times, we've noticed that the whole world has been in a bit of a crisis. As a matter of fact, at the present, the death toll related to COVID is at a staggering 3.89 lakhs, and we are nearing the 4 lakh figures. This has put a tremendous stress on, organizations like the PF, the ESIC, and all of them, where they are focusing on paying out employees benefits that would help them in such stressful times. The objective with which we have come up with this session, where you will get great insights into the benefits that are entitled to employees, is based on 3 principles that we had in mind when we came up with this entire session. The why is something which is very clear. We are here to help our employees find out any possible ways in which we could get maximum benefits that could reach out to our employees. The how is what's going to happen in the next 1 hour, where we have subject matter experts on call here with us. And throughout this session, we're going to be showcasing to you all of the benefits that employees are entitled to under the various schemes that are there in our country. And the what will happen towards the end, where this entire webinar, along with all the questions that arise from each and every one of the participants, will be answered and will be made available to you as a ready reckoner. So what Allsec brings to this webinar is a combined experience of 50 years of experience in working in this field. We have Mr. Udaiyakumar Jain, who is the head of our legal services, who has an experience of 20 years providing legal guidance and counseling. We have Mr. Vimalaharan Raj, Senior Manager Statutory Compliance with over 15 years of experience, and Mr. Veeresh Kanti, Regional Manager South Compliance Operations with over 13 years. And this is just 3 of our workforce who are available here. And you have to imagine we have more and more people working to help our business partners solve their employee concerns so that our employees and people of this nation who are badly affected are benefited during this time of crisis. The government has gone ahead and taken decisions on war footing, whereby when the pandemic opened up, they had policies that were released. And as the first wave went and the second wave hit, there were amendments that were made, new releases that came out. And as we anticipate the third wave to strike, you never know what is going to happen. So we as employers have to be on par, or I would say have these recent developments on our fingertips so that we would be able to provide the best solutions to all our employees' queries as and when they reach out to. And that is why we have put together this session for you. So let me right now invite Mr. Udaiyakumar, who's going to give us a brief agenda of what we can expect in, the upcoming hour that we're going to be having this discussion.
Thanks, Greg, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. About myself, I'm Udaiyakumar, a lawyer by profession with more than 22 years of experience in labor and employment laws. I head the legal division at Allsec. Without any further ado, let me get into the reason for the agenda of today's session. At Allsec, through our various help desk touchpoints, we have been receiving n number of queries from multiple clients, fraternities, bodies with regard to all the benefits which are being extended under various schemes, and the same are also being addressed flawlessly by our team through the clients and the fraternities. That is when we felt that due to the lockdown and the COVID related crisis which is encountered by the nation, This vital information has probably not reached out to the beneficiaries or the employers or the employees in a manner which it was intended to reach. We at Allsec thrive to be proactive and reach out to our contacts, customers, and clients and assure that we always are there with them at the need are. And that is the reason this session aims only to share whatever knowledge we have gathered in this regard with the participants here so that they are benefited by utilizing whatever applicable schemes are there to their organization. Hence, this session is designed to provide the most available information in that regard. I would request all of you to attend very carefully this session and imbibe the relevant information for your organization and employee benefits to be in support of them and their beneficiaries are passed on at this need are. The government of India has extended various beneficial schemes to employees and uh, the beneficiaries, even for the general public, be it under ESI scheme, EPFO, EDLI, and other key legislations like payment of gratuity, maternity benefit, or employee compensation act. And also you have certain other health insurances in this regard. One thing which I would like to add up here, apart from being, though it may not be relevant to an employer-employee concept, the government of India has also extended a welfare measure to children who have lost their parents, both the parents. The central government have also issued a corpus of 10 lakh, which has been ensured when they turn 18 years of age, providing to them for their education, higher education under PM CARES Fund. There is a relevant scheme which is getting framed under that. The participants here are also requested to please pass on these kind of messages to the employees as well as for beneficiaries and ask them to cascade that further to general public who actually are impacted due to this kind of situations and take maximum utilizations of that. This is just like as a social responsibility we need to pass on to the general public as well. Participants are requested to educate this to the employees, beneficiaries, again the HR operations people who take care of this activity. I request all of you to park the questions, attend the session in entirety, park the questions for the last, and we also will have a detailed FAQ and publish it to the participants post the session is over. Hope you all enjoy the session and take the best out of it. Now Gregory will take the session on. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Uday. That was quite insightful, and I'm sure the participants here are going to post questions in the chat window. I have a request to all the participants here. I know there are friends of the HR fraternity who are from different departments, and all of you will have questions in your mind, and we've already seen these questions being posted in our chat box. If you have a question that pertains to a particular nature of the query, for example, if it is a question that pertains to, let's say, ESIC, so we would like you to indicate that this question pertains to ESIC and then give us your question. So just type ESIC and then a hyphen followed by your question. Now, this will help us to collect these questions later on and pass them out as FAQs. It'll help us to easily tag these questions. And also, through my subject matter experts on the call, it will make it easier for them to spontaneously answer these questions as and when they receive. So if there's a question pertaining to PF, you could immediately just type PF and write your question. So this will help people to go ahead and look. So for example, if you find a question that pertains to something that you've asked and somebody has already put that ahead of you, you can go ahead and like that question. And that will let us know which is the most popular questions that we're receiving, and we will go ahead and answer them on priority. So as we are going through this session, you will also have the chat window open to go ahead and receive all your queries, and you will also start receiving answers as we are progressing through this. Now, like what Mr. Uday said, during this pandemic period, I know a lot of us employees, as a matter of fact, human beings, want somebody by their side to comfort them and let them know that things will be fine. But because of the nature of the situation and, of course, the social distancing norms, we're not able to be close to them to give them that sense of assurance. And today, with the information age, people are bombarded with a lot of misinformation and unnecessary information, causing more panic than the pandemic itself. So at this point of time, the right news, the right message, getting across to somebody who is desperately in need for answers will definitely help them. And it gives them that sense of assurance that their employer really cares for their well-being. And this is something that we are morally responsible to do in such a situation to help our country as a whole. So having said that, let us go in and first take a look at benefits that are there from the Provident Fund. So the Employee Provident Fund scheme, right, as I'm sure all of you are aware, has a fund that has been accumulated by the contribution made by employees in a timely manner during the course of their employment. Now, in the past, we have known that employees are able to withdraw the money that they have accumulated over the past under various schemes. For example, you could go ahead and say you're going to do home improvement, you're planning on doing certain things with regard to educating your children or any kind of family obligations like weddings and events, so on and so forth. Now, according to this, 90% up to 90% of the PF amount could be withdrawn by filling out the necessary form. And thanks to the digitization process, all of this is done online. Now, in case if the contributing member, which is the employee, is deceased, then the PF amount, which has been accumulated, is payable to the nominees and legal heirs. Now, this is where there are a lot of questions that come in. Now, obviously, from the documentation purpose, what are documents that are required in such criteria, especially now that the entire process has been made online? How do we go ahead and submit things? So this is where we as employers have to provide the right guidance for people. Now, here is where we need to always understand that we as employers always need to advise employees to have a higher contribution towards the PF scheme, because the rate of interest is very lucrative. As a matter of fact, if you were to compare it with regards to the interest rates available, given by banks for deposits, this is pretty competitive. So that is why you need to always tell employees that it is better to carry forward your PF from one organization into another organization and not look at short-term benefits of withdrawing your PF amount and encashing it, because in times of need, this can really set things up for their future. And also, in case of an emergency, the money will be of great help to the near and dear who are left behind in certain situations which are unavoidable. So that is why always when you talk about the PF scheme, talk about the greater good of it and tell employees how beneficial it is, because there are employees who kind of come and negotiate with us saying, you know what, I want a higher take home. Is there any way you could go ahead and take off this contribution to PF because I'm not going to be getting the money in hand? But that is something that we have to maybe go the extra mile and educate them about the same. Now, moving from here, we're taking a look at the superannuation and how we have certain terms with regards to that. So the retirement age for employees right now is 58 years. Now we also see that there are certain guidelines that need to be met in order for that to happen. So there has to be 10 years of service for the eligibility to be met. Now, there are certain employees who are retained in an organization beyond, the age of 58. Now, these are employees because of their contribution and the kind of need of the hour, we extend them. So this is where you need to go ahead and tell them or advise them on how the superannuation process will work in order that the PF contribution will kick in and start paying them the pension from the time they hit the eligibility for it to start giving the payouts. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is there are certain jobs where employees are at risk of injury. So in such situations where disability is a result of such injuries, that is when we need to understand that the pension scheme will go ahead and start taking care of the employees. So that is why, in order for all this to be fulfilled, there is, I would say, a ton of documentation that needs to be done. And this is where, in order to ensure that employees who are going through such situations are not left running back and forth, looking for what are the documents that are required. So we need to make sure that if there is a situation where they reach out to us, we have everything provided to them so that it is all very easily doable and something that they can easily submit at one go so that they would enjoy the benefits. This is what a lot of organizations take pride in calling the golden handshake. So they say that even though an employee has left the organization, but the way in which they are cared for in making sure that these benefits reach out to them is something that tells them how much we value their contribution towards us during their term of employment with us. Now, let's take a look at who are the beneficiaries and how things. So we have the following people who stand to get benefits. For example, we have the pension member. Now, the pension member is contributing towards his or her pension fund, and once at the time of retirement, they will go ahead and start receiving pension. Now, what happens if that pension member has got a dependent family and the family solely was dependent on the earnings? This is when, upon death of the family member or the contributing member to the pension fund is there, the family will start receiving the pension benefits. All right. We also have scheme certificates that have been issued, and the withdrawal benefits that we see are very, very important. So in major junctures of life, now you do understand the cost of inflation is placing a load on how much we need to save up for the future. So that is when, if properly advised on how people could use it, so instead of borrowing money from places with higher interest and all of it, people could go ahead and very tactfully use what they have rightfully saved during their course of employment. And that is why we always advise people to take the employment route, save up, so that this money could really be beneficial and helpful to them in times when it is absolutely needed. Now, let's move from here and take a look at the pension that's been paid out to the family. So firstly, we have the widow pension. Now, this is a benefit that goes to the widow of an employee who's been contributing, or if the person until death, once the contributing member is no longer there, or until the time they get remarried. So this is the way in which families that have been devastated, where the single earning member of the family is no more, all right? Us bearing news that the sustenance of the family will be provided through schemes like this will be a welcome news. Obviously, it's not going to replace the loss of a loved one in the family, but definitely this is not going to put the family into undue hardships. Now, in cases where there are more than, well, one spouse to the person, now that is when the pension will be paid to the first wedded wife, and then after the decease of the first wedded wife, later passed on to the second wife, which is something that we do notice in certain sects of the society where people are married twice. Now, if there are children, dependent children, so this is when the children also receive a part of the pension up till the age of 25. So these are things that are there. So it comes with a sense of reassurance that how a family will look at the planning done by their loved one, the head of the family, by saying that this is how your father ensured that in whatever little that he could earn, he saved up for you and your future. And that coming from the employer to the children will definitely put their father or that earning member of the family in such high regard. And these are things that when we tell them will make them feel or hold that person in very high regard. Now, there are certain cases where there are no immediate family members who are eligible. So this is when there are people who choose to live a single life, either be a spinster or a bachelor, and are even orphans. So in such situation, these are people who can have a nominee. So if there is a person who is working and who says that, now you can very clearly tell them that, you know what, you are entitled to benefits such as this. And after you could go ahead and pass this on to somebody who you think. So this is when caretakers, all right, have been beneficiaries and it works. As a matter of fact, a lot of elderly people, once they have nobody in family, because we see during the pandemic that the pandemic has actually devastated families. Families have lost almost a good number of earning members of the family. So this is when there is no eligible family member left, then you can always advise people that they can always nominate somebody. And the procedure followed will ensure that these benefits reach the right people. Now, if there are no immediate family members and there are dependent parents, even elderly parents can receive benefits. So first the benefit is paid to the father and then later passed on to the mother for, well, the period of their life. So these are things that we need to be aware of. Now imagine the kind of awareness that is created when we have things like this, and this will definitely open up a lot of opportunity to let people know the benefit of contributing towards your PF1. So next up, we'll take a look at the Employee State Insurance Corporation Welfare Schemes. So like it says, is to provide for certain benefits in case of sickness, maternity, and employment-related injuries. Now here, you need to understand the contribution amount which was done by the employer and the employee now stands revised. So that's what we have as the chart. And all the people who are benefited from this is the father, the mother, the spouse, the children, and legitimate children. Now comes the question, who are legitimate children? There are couples who have not been blessed with the opportunity of biologically parenting children. So this is when they opt for adopting children. And in today's society, a lot of children have been orphaned because their mothers and parents, father, have succumbed to the COVID illness. So we can always tell employees who are childless, tell them that, you know what, you can always adopt children and rest assured that, well, we have policies to even take care of them. So that way, because medical expenses of bringing up a child is something that parents always consider, looking at how situations are. But now that you know we have a backup system to provide for that, gives parents an assurance that it is something that they could take for themselves. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the benefits that are entitled to employees. So we have medical benefits for self and the family of the contributing member, sickness benefits for the contributing member, maternity benefits for the contributing member, disability benefits for the contributing member. Now, there are certain dependent benefits which extend to the nominees who are all nominated as per the ESIC nomination form. Now, funeral benefits are provided to the family member in case of the death of the ESIC card holder or the member who's been contributing to the ESIC policy. Rehabilitation allowances are there for self, which is to the contributing member. Old age Medicare for self and spouse. So once a member comes inside this, and even beyond a certain age, yes, benefits are provided, because when your age, medical care and assistance becomes quite challenging and also a financial burden. And medical bonus for women and insured persons' wife are also available. Now, moving from here, when we have medical benefits, we have benefits that are covered for employees and their families. Now, medical benefits means that every employee has access to the ESIC membership of hospitals, and also all hospitals that have been tied up with the Employee State Insurance Corporation. So now, considering the pandemic situation, the benefit is also extended where we could go ahead and work with hospitals, whereby, like how we go ahead with private insurance schemes, upon getting the person treated, we could go ahead and even submit for reimbursement claims with the ESIC, provided we follow the proper procedure. And we also have outdoor patient, inpatient treatment, all necessary drugs, and even prenatal and postnatal care. And all of this falls under the purview of ESIC. So as an employee who falls under the ESIC scheme, we can very clearly let them know of the entire set of benefits that have been well entitled to them. Now, ESIC has also enabled super specialty treatments with the help of reputed private hospital tie-ups for insured persons and their dependents. So through the network of ESIC hospitals throughout the country, insured members can go ahead and avail world-class treatment to take care of situations. And that is something that we are seeing right now. The dearth of hospital beds, the dearth of treatment, the dearth of specialized care like oxygen, ventilators, and all of that. And that is where ESIC has stepped in with this kind of tie-ups that is created. And you need to understand it comes with the full might and power of the government and regulating bodies, which is why they've been able to make certain leaps and bounds. Now, when we look at sickness benefits, the insured person, there are certain clauses that need to be fulfilled. For example, we have the contributing period. That is from the 1st of April to the 30th of September, which forms the first period. And then, of course, we have from the 1st of October till the 31st of March. So all we have to do is ensure that employees are fulfilling the criteria. For example, the insured person to contribute for 78 days in the corresponding contribution period of 6 months. So if we know that the contribution period is from the 1st of April to the 30th of September and the 1st of October till the 31st of March, then we could go ahead and plan on advising them. So sickness benefits, again, 91 days, all right, in 2 consecutive benefit periods. So all these are clauses that will definitely help us ensure that we can go ahead and tell them of the benefits of using the Employee State Insurance Corporation scheme and how we could go ahead. Now, there are even benefit rates that are available. For example, people who are brought under the daily wage, it's roughly up to 80% of benefits they get when they are down with illness and they are looking for a source of remuneration. So this is something that comes. Right now, there are diseases which have been included. All right, we have 34 malignant and long-term diseases, and this goes ahead and says that people suffering from them are also under the scheme of receiving benefits from the ESIC, and all come under the sickness benefits that we have. So people who are on extended sickness benefits, these are people who are down with something really grave and that is something that we have been seeing, is payable for 309 days over and above the 91 days of the initial sickness benefits that we provide. So this brings to a total of 400 days that we have benefits that are coming out to them. So these are things that we are aware of. Now, based on the need, the situation of the hour, we can go ahead and clarify with employees as to what will be the best way they could go ahead and get the benefits that are entitled to them. Now, even for treatments like vasectomy and tubectomy, all right, we have enhanced sickness benefits. So here is where you need to understand the way in which this has been quite dynamic. And as the world keeps increasing its awareness on diseases, and diseases keep moving from normal diseases to lifestyle-related diseases, we have benefits that have been constantly included. So it is always best to keep ourselves up to date with the recent developments and the kind of benefits that have been extended. Now, this list will keep on getting appended, and that is the beauty of it. So the more and more the government is going ahead and coming up with schemes that makes it more inclusive, it automatically gets us to be aware, so that based on the need of the hour, we are able to bring and put across the benefits to employees with regards to where they will go. For example, the double the standard benefit, not less than daily wage. So these are clauses that have been included, and this requires a lot of clarity. So this is when you are aware of certain criteria like this, we could go ahead and look at what will be the best that would work to help out employees get the maximum out of their policy that they have. Now, this also extends to dependents, and that is what we have on the right-hand side of the screen. So when the insured person is dead, now there are dependent benefits that are extended to the dependents who have been covered. So that is why when always signing up, we go ahead and tell them to ensure that they very clearly enlist family members, all right, and put them and ensure that sufficient documentation is made available. Tell the employees to keep a file labeled ESIC. So in case of anything, all they have to do is hand this file over to the employer, and the employer will take care of it. The reason being, a lot of the documents that need to be submitted will need to have the attestation of the employer. And that is when a ready reckoner of all the documents, this could be copies of your Aadhaar, pictures, this could be made proof of illness, certificates from the doctor, hospital, and all of it that need to be there. So if all this carry an endorsement of the employer, it adds more value. So it's always better to advise employees to have this documentation ready, because in case of an emergency, it makes this entire process a seamless process in getting the benefits to them at the earliest possible time. Now, disability comes with regards to employees who are working in environments where there is a high risk. So this is where we need to ensure that we have disability benefits that are once an employee comes into the ESIC purview, right? When disability comes, there is no contributory condition that applies. So there is no eligibility that needs to be fulfilled. The moment the person comes and the person is under the purview of the ESI, and if there is ESIC, if there is anything related to disability, coverage actually starts from day one. And that is something that we need to be proactive in explaining to our employees. And if there is temporary disability, all right, this is when the benefits are extended to the person. So this is something that we need to go ahead. So there are employees, there are categories of disability that will become, and this is something is there that's available. And there are also doctors that go ahead and look at it. So based on how it is, you can always go ahead and tell employees of the benefits that they're entitled to. And if there's permanent disability, so this is when we talk about how it is extended. So these are things that we need to go ahead and educate employees. So of course, we have maternity benefits, and that has been, I guess, in the recent years, the most welcome gesture in terms of how the maternity benefits have been extended, where the leave of 26 weeks comes inside. Now, here is something that we need to very clearly understand. To educate employees how they would meet the eligibility criteria, especially in organizations that are looking at increasing the diversity of the workforce. All right. So women employees who are coming into the workforce for the first time need to be advised. As a matter of fact, through counseling sessions that are done inside the organization, telling them of benefits that they're entitled to. Now, this will ensure that women who generally put off life-changing events like extending a family due to financial constraints will be able to take much stronger decisions, knowing that they will receive the kind of financial support from, well, the ESIC. So this is things that we need to, and also you need to understand in case of miscarriage and also any kind of pregnancy related illnesses, all right, there are schemes that go ahead and cover employees. So these are benefits that need to be very clearly explained to employees. And imagine women, when they are aware of this, they actually feel empowered, and that will take them to working with undivided attention and focusing on what they have to do, because they know that well, their personal needs when it comes to the time of maternity is taken care of by these schemes, and how we as the employer are ensured that we are going ahead and educating them on what are the benefits that they are entitled to. Now, here is where we have a table of how we have the name of the benefit, the people who come under the eligibility criteria, what are the eligible conditions that need to be fulfilled in order to enjoy a particular benefit that has been extended, and of course, certain points that we need to keep in mind when talking to them. Like we said, participants will have access to the recording of the session, and you are always free to reach out to the organizers of the meeting to go ahead and have any of your doubts pertaining to any of these clarified, and we will go ahead and be happy to answer any of the queries that come from all of the participants who are here on the call. Now, this is where we have seen some major developments happen recently with regards to the pandemic. And like I told, the death toll, right, it's close to the 4 lakh number. 4 lakh individuals have lost their lives due to the pandemic. And of course, this doesn't take away from the normal toll of accidents and other reasons for employees to lose their life. So this is a time when the family, which is deeply affected, will go ahead and at least feel a sense of consolation that their financial burden is eased out. So here we have that if a member expires before 58 years of age, then the widow will receive the eligible amount or a minimum of 1,000 rupees a month. Now, here is something that you need to notice. So there are families to which even whatever the money that the person was earning, which is now reduced to a zero because the person is no longer there, anything that comes and replaces that will be something that makes a huge difference from that. Okay. So this is where we need to very clearly explain to them that the people who are covered under this, all right, or who are brought under the umbrella of protection are parents, spouse, and children. So this will form what is called the immediate family circle, because in a country like India, there are still people living with their parents, having their own family, so where parents get to see grandparents. And this is where if the sole earning member of the family has something happen to him or her, then they will find that the entire family is now put in a major financial crisis. So this is when, if you look at how the benefits cover both parents, spouse, and the children, all of them are protected. So what we see here is the widow receives pension of 50% for her lifetime. And this is once the person has started receiving his or her pension. And after that, uh, the person, the contributing member, is no more. That is when the widow will receive these benefits till her lifetime. Now, if there are children, now children will receive 25% till the age they turn 25. So this way, it will take care of expenses like children's education and basic needs. And coupled with the other benefits that we have through ESIC, we will go ahead and see how this works in tandem to help the benefits take care of the entire family. Now, if the spouse is no more, so that is when the kids will receive additional benefits to take care of their expenses. Now, you need to understand, it is unfortunate that sometimes parents are blessed with children who have some form of disability, which prevents them from leading normal lives. So in such a situation, they will receive pension till the end of their life. All right. So this is how it guarantees that children are taken care of. Now here is where we have a list of documents that need to be submitted. Now all you need to understand is all these documents will require attestations that have to be done. So that is why we always tell employees to ensure that they have a file saying what are the documents that are required. So even we, if we are visiting such grieved families, I'm sure there will be one member who is in charge of the entire situation. If there are employees of us who are from backgrounds where the family members are not well educated, tell the employee to advise their family member to educate somebody in the family, the near kith and kin, on what are the documents that they need to procure for the family, so that at a time such as this, a crisis situation like this, they're able to come out with all these documents. So things like getting the death certificate. We have the forms that need to be submitted, all right? So those have to be done. And if there are children, okay, who are entitled, birth certificate of the children that need to be procured. So the birth is a very good news in the family, but sometimes people are so excited about it that they actually forget to register the birth and even collect necessary documents. So ensuring that once the child is born, to ensure that the birth of the child is registered, the necessary birth certificate is collected and kept, all right? And also, a very important thing is that the beneficiaries need to have bank accounts, okay, because all payouts are done through bank accounts. And usually it is advised that they have it in the same bank as that of the person who was the PF contributor. And preferably banks that will work well are nationalized banks. We also have a list of banks that are available. So when closely working with your consultants who are guiding you on this, where we will give you the best options that could work based on the nature of business and who, well, you, our partners, are currently working with crediting the salary. And of course, having passport pictures, because at times when the family is completely grieved, uh, getting them to run around to get a picture or a passport picture becomes quite a hassle. So always advise employees every year or maybe once in 2 years, just take a passport picture of everybody. Now, as far as adults are concerned, there are not going to be major changes. But when there are children in the family, at least once in every 2 years, right? It is advisable to get a passport picture and also a family picture taken so that it can be later used in such situations to claim benefits. Now, when we have the composite form, all right, here are the documents that are required, right? These are things that all have to be procured, and again, attestations also is required in cases. So the original death certificate, non-employment certificate if the person is retired or if the person is unemployed and they are there. Uh, Surviving family member certificate, this is something to show that this person is left behind a family and this person is the sole dependent. Bank details, all right, passbooks. So anytime they open a bank account, advise them to have passbooks. And that is where these national banks really help because they are very meticulous in their procedure and they all ensure that a passbook is issued to people. Aadhaar card, PAN card copies, all right, pictures, and please advise them that color photos are way appreciated, all right. And you have other certificates like death while in certificate and marriage certificate, all right, in case people are married. So these are things that will really go ahead and ensure that the process in which we could go ahead and get these PF settlements done will be done in a very smooth manner. And that is why here is a ready reckoner that we have with regards to the documents that are required. Now, the EDLI scheme, right, here very clearly says that nominees, family members, legal heirs can claim up to 7 lakhs. Now, these are things that we have. So these are schemes that we can definitely go ahead and educate employees and tell them about what are the most important things, benefits that are extended to them. And you need to understand that this has come into effect. And you can see that date when it has come into effect. It was in the month of February in the year 2020. So there are calculations that we have as a ready reckoner, but always understand in most of the process of claiming benefits, all right, usually is a real pain to a person doing it, especially with the documentation process. Now, if the documents are submitted on time, like the list of documents we have, all right, um, it makes the entire process work a lot easier. All right. Succession certificates, for example, things that they need to go to the local Tahsildar office to get documents and copies. In terms of there are guardianship certificates that they need to provide. So all these are things that need to be there. And always tell employees the benefits of having bank accounts that come with checkbooks. Because right now there are certain online banks where you could just go ahead and open a bank account virtually, but you don't have access to a passbook nor a checkbook. Now, during this pandemic period, where would somebody run around to go ahead and get these at crisis times will be a major issue. So that is why educate them to have at least a bank account with a nationalized bank where they will take care of all the procedures and tell them to have bank accounts, especially for the older members of the family where they have a checkbook facility. You never really know when it would be of great help to them. Now, if there is any the death of a family member due to any kind of a work-related accident or injury, then they can go ahead and receive well the kind of benefits that take care of medical, funeral expenses, and even lifetime pension. So here are some of well the rates at which it's been provided. For example, the member's widow receives about 3/5 of the pension rate, while the children receive about 2/5 of the pension rate until they turn 25 years of age. Now, if the person has got daughters, right, and they are unmarried, they will receive this until their age where they get married. Okay, and if the person has a mother, then the mother also receives. So now if you notice, the spouse is taken care of, the children are taken care of. If there are daughters, then well, it is special care for them until the age they get married, and also the mother. So this is how the umbrella covers the immediate family and tells them of the benefit. And again, if there are children who are physically challenged, all right, differently abled, and are dependent on the member for their living, then they get benefits extended till their lifetime, or they're able to prove that, you know what, I have an additional source of income, or I've received some form in which I could go ahead and provide sustenance for myself. So here, if you notice, the most interesting point is if the member, the deceased member, does not have a spouse or children, then 3/10 of the pension rate goes to the parents or even paternal grandparents, whoever is alive. So this is how, when people are aware of such benefits and how it extends over and above, then people will be very glad to go ahead and rest assured that the contributions they're making is something that is valuable and secures their future in the best possible way. Now, when it comes to the demise of a person, the ESI department ensures that there are funeral expenses that are taken care of. Especially, it was 10,000 rupees earlier, but now it has been brought up to 15,000 rupees since 2018. So here is where medical care, which a person who was receiving throughout the time they were under the ESIC purview, right? The spouse can have it extended to her by just paying an annual fee of 120 rupees. So this would take care of all medical expenses that they would go through, with the exception of super specialty treatment. Now that would be a separate category. But the simple things of going ahead and taking care of any ailments, your regular scans, maybe simple injuries, taking care of minor surgeries, and all of that would be there. Unless you're going in for some super specialty treatment, that's when the exception clause comes inside. Now, what are the documents that we need to go ahead and file in order to go ahead and claim? So first and foremost of all, here are the list of documents. There are incident reports that are filed. For example, the hospital has, well, their report that they file. The police also has an inquest report inquiring about what is the cause and what is the nature of the entire incident that happens. There is also an accident report based on where the accident happened, what has been recorded, right? In all things, if it is a police case and it has been registered, the copy of the FIR, if a medical postmortem has been done, even the postmortem report to determine the cause of death and the death certificate, all of it needs to be procured. So this is why, as members, we need to know what is it that we need to go about in asking people to go and submit, so that once they do it, we could go ahead and ensure that the benefits reach out to the family. Now, usually in situations, there will be somebody who will take responsibility and will reach out to the organization to find out, saying, especially if it is a case of an accident in the work premises, family members generally tend to be a little emotional. So that is when, if there is somebody who is aware of certain things, we could go ahead, talk to them, counsel them, and tell them that, yes, this is what we could go and claim, and we could get this for you, provided you're willing to go ahead and submit all of these documents. Again, remember, it being channeled through the employer ensures that we go ahead and have the necessary attestations provided if it needs to be provided, so that we could quickly expedite the claim process so that the benefits reach the person at the right time. So now we have the Employee Compensation Act and the Gratuity Act. So these are Well, with regards to death benefits that come in, so the ESIC has a cap in the salary to which people, if they fall under the salary slab, they become eligible under the ESIC. Now, employees who are over and above will now come under the Employee Compensation Act and the Gratuity Act. So the way in which it is calculated is we have the formula there, the basic, the number of years of service multiplied by the basic plus the DA into 15 by 26. So here is when there's always this clause saying that we have it when it comes to gratuity where it's calculated at 4.8 and above. But when it comes to death, it's taken as the number of years of service. So here is when the eligibility will be not something that was looked at the 4.8 when it comes to gratuity. So from the date of death, the number of years of service is calculated without any eligibility clauses applying there. That's what we were trying to imply. Now, state-wise, there are different benefits. Now, I'm just going to not get into the nitty-gritties, but just look at the cash benefits that are there. So the state of Karnataka, the Labour Welfare Fund, says that the death benefit of 5,000 rupees will be paid, and all documents need to be sent in through register post to the Labour Welfare Fund office, and the settlement will be processed within 1 week. And the documents required are there for your reference. So we have the death certificate original, the deceased person's Aadhaar card, and of course the passbook. Now this is something that has to be done. The passbook needs to have the details very clearly visible. Okay, sometimes that's why we always advise employees whenever you get a passbook from a bank, keep it in a very secure place, because over time and friction between the pages of the book, the details of the account, such as the IFSC code and the account number, sometimes are not clearly visible. So always tell them to keep the passbook in a very safe and secure place so that these details are not something that gets smudged over a period of time. Of course, photo of the deceased employee and photo of the nominee who stands to receive the benefits. Now let's take a look at it for the other states which are here. So Maharashtra says that the funeral benefit of 5,000 rupees will be paid to the deceased, and financial assistance of 12,000 rupees per annum up to 5 years to the widow or widower in case of death. Right? So this is something that is an extended benefit. Again, if you notice, this would require additional documents that need to be submitted, and that's what we are seeing here. So each one has its own set of documents, and this is where we as employers will be able to tell them what will be the best set to have ready in order for them to have these benefits availed to them at the earliest possible time. Now, next we move on to the state of Tamil Nadu. So it says for natural death, 25,000 will be paid, and for accidental death, the amount is 4 times where they will receive 1 lakh rupees. And in addition to that, 5,000 rupees towards funeral expense is paid to the dependent of the worker. Now, the eligibility is the deceased employee should have contributed to the Labour Welfare Fund. And it also says that the employee's monthly salary should not be exceeding 25,000 rupees per month, and that category is looked at where the basic pay and DA are taken into account. And claim will be given to the legal heir of the employee, which means a legal heir certificate is something that needs to be procured. So this is why, if you notice, the list of documents that we have here has the legal heir certificate, and also we have a no objection certificate that needs to be provided. So this is when, if people are not aware, running around to get this will be a huge challenge, and at that moment it will only amount to frustration. But if these things are advised, then all they need to do is take time, get the documents ready, and we would be happy to assist them to ensure that these benefits reach to them. And look at the benefits that the states are providing for people in crisis like this, so that they will get the right kind of assistance to take care of the immediate financial needs of the family. Now we look at Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, where they say for natural death, it is 10,000 rupees, and for accidental death, it is 25,000 rupees. Gujarat says that the insurance claim amount is 10,000 rupees for natural death and 25 for accidental death. And here, with regards to the documentation, you could always reach out to us and we would be able to give you the most concurrent list of documents that need to be provided. So if there are any queries that you have with regards to this, because I know we have close to 250 plus participants, and all of you are representing various industries from different states. And if you have your employee base or even have a query that pertains to a particular thing, feel free to reach out to us. The chat box is there. We're seeing a lot of questions coming in, and we'd be happy to answer. We'd be even collating all the answers and giving this out so that at the end of it, what you need to advise employees on what needs to be done will be taken care of. Now, the Labour Welfare Fund of Haryana, all they say is the eligibility is the labor must be registered, membership year 0, and there you go, you have it. So here they have online where you could go ahead and apply it, all right, and it provides 2 lakhs to the dependent member and their legal heir. So the scheme, again introduced in the year 2021, all right, is the Haryana Labour Death Assistance Scheme. So this is how governments are responding, all right, and to keep track, especially if you have employees across diverse geographies, being aware of how each state is responding itself is a huge challenge, which is where our legal expertise and our awareness of how we constantly monitor changes in the dynamic situation where states are coming out with their own policies and funds help us to provide you with the best solutions that will take care of your employees' requirements. So here we have it for West Bengal. The eligibility says the age limit is between 18 and 60. Now all they have to do is to pay 20 to 30 rupees, which is a contribution at the time of registration. Now, the benefits that they're entitled to is 50,000 rupees for natural death, 1,50,000 rupees for death due to accident at the workplace, and 3,000 rupees for funeral expenses. And this is paid out to all the registered beneficiaries who are there. So that is why it is very important to understand that like the states that we are showcasing to you, you're able to see how this has been quite dynamic. Next, we're going to be taking a look at Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. So there you have the accidental death says 5 lakhs, where 3.3 lakhs comes from labor welfare schemes and 2 lakhs comes from the Pradhan Mantri Surakshana Biman Yojana. All right. So this is given to the nominee spouse or family member. All right. So based on, well, how they have been enrolled into, well, the setup that we have. Now, in case of natural death, 20,000 rupees. All right. And funeral expenses of 10,000 rupees is paid. So this is how you see there are dynamic policies that are there, and everything has its own set of procedures that need to be followed to the T in order, because these are financial benefits that are coming. The procedure required to avail them is something that has to be paid close attention to. Now we're going to be looking at a circular that was published by ESIC, all right, and it talks about the medical benefits and the cash benefits, especially to provide medical care during the pandemic period, right? So the ESIC has been very dynamic to respond to situations, and here they very clearly say how they have 3,676 COVID isolation beds and 229 ICU beds with 163 ventilator beds. And this is all done by 26 ESI scheme hospitals run by state governments, right? And these are all exclusive for COVID treatment, okay, apart from the other machinery of the ESI. So this is how regularly there are updates that are available. So employees can understand that during the pandemic period, we did see the news, how the media was running around saying beds are not available, hospitals are in utter chaos. So this is when ensuring that this news goes out to employees who need them and they have access to this is something that will really work. And we also have cash benefits that are there that are getting paid out to family members because medical expenses itself is one on the rise. Now, in case of an unfortunate event where the member is not able to survive, now paying for funeral expenses is like squeezing the last drop of blood out of them. So that is when benefits, if paid out to them, all right, will definitely help. So there are schemes that are there. For example, we have schemes like the Atal Bimit Vikati Kalyan Yojana, right? So under which 50% of the average earning for a maximum of 90 days is something that can be paid out. So this is where a person becomes unemployed. So this scheme will take care of benefits that they can receive. So various circulars like this, and we, for whom this is primarily our area of focus, constantly keep monitoring, looking at how this could go ahead and reach out to our employees and constantly focus in also working with partners who have trusted their employees' care and benefits to us, get this to them at the earliest. So recent benefits added under the PF Act during COVID times is you could go ahead and under the PF scheme, we had different areas in which you could go ahead and withdraw your accumulated PF balance. So now you could also go ahead and withdraw stating that COVID has caused a financial crunch and a burden on you. So the applicability is you need to have 3 months of minimum contribution to the PF fund, and all you have to do is go online and use Form 31 and apply. So this is how we go ahead and educate employees, especially employees who have been at home and the employer has a no work, no pay kind of a policy. We can tell them to go ahead and use this scheme to get the maximum benefit so that they're able to tide over the situation and not be very drastically affected by how things are going on. So the key points of the new notification as the ESIC. Now, medical treatment such as illness and accident for self and spouse and parents, as well as the ESIC has tied up with multi-specialty hospitals. Now, here is where it comes inside. So it's not only with the ESI hospitals, but the tie-up has also extended to multi-specialty hospitals. So here is where a member, all they have to do is like how they have it with private insurance schemes, looking at saying, what is my ESIC tie-up? Is this hospital fall under the ESIC network? And if it does, I could go ahead and it's a partner hospital, go ahead and avail treatment. Now, if it is a hospital that is outside of it, then all they need to do is go ahead and fill it and claim the reimbursements from the ESIC office. So that is where this is something that you could go ahead and use. So to avoid, avail the multi-specialty hospital treatment, they should have a 9-month eligibility. So these are key benefits. So if there are suggestions that you're going to be making to employees, you can always check to see, okay, does the employee have 9 months of PF contribution. So I have it. So let me go ahead and tell this employee that, you know what, you can actually look for treatment outside the ESI facilities and also look at tie-up hospitals that they are working with. So this is something that is being done specifically to ensure that more people who are under the ESIC umbrella have access to treatment. Now, there is a passbook that has been introduced for members, and every family member, all right, is also entitled to go ahead and get the passbook. So this passbook helps them to keep a record of all, it's the medical history, all right, and that will be a ready reckoner when it comes to anything. So here we have a list of all the forms, the detailing authorities, and the timelines that are there. So we have 13, which we have here, looking at the states. So the timelines that are here is something that we need to pay a lot of attention to. So we need to make sure that we get the maximum out of these timelines, and that is done provided everything is submitted properly. All right. So in order to submit it properly, we need to know what is required, how it is required, and whether does it have the necessary authorization and seals and all the kind of attestation that needs to be provided. So once that is taken care of, then you will find that the timelines will be very clearly adhered to, and people will receive the benefits that they have been entitled to. So with this, we are coming to a point where I have a couple of questions that have been quite popularly flagged. So I'm going to be raising it to my panel of experts, and I think my panel of experts, apart from the questions that I'm going to be putting across to them, have already been answering a lot of your questions in the chat box. However, due to paucity of time, for questions for which the panel of experts weren't able to type out the answers, we will be publishing a frequently asked question handbook out of this. So the combined intelligence of all the participants who have got your case studies or situations for which you need an answer will definitely help out everybody who has access to this information later on. So let me go ahead and pose a question to Vimal. What are the death benefits under the ESIC Act?
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Greg. You have given a very superb informatic things under the various acts. See, now we will see there are three major parts. To meet out that immediate expense of funeral, that is 15,000 rupees we can get, and the nominees will get the pension rates under different ratios they will get, and if they handicapped in the sense lifetime irrespective of their age, they will get the complete pensions, applicable pensions, and extended medical benefits by paying 120 rupees annually. That spouse or other family members will get the extended benefits. So this is death benefits under the ESIC. In addition to that, what are the documents we required to submit for availing this kind of benefits that I am telling. Form 15 pension accident report, which already you have covered in the slides only. Hospital bill, police records, all these necessary forms which we have to submit, and how the HR person can support the deceased family member by getting these benefits. HR has to guide the respective family, deceased family members, family or responsible person who is coming forward to get the benefits. In terms of collating the documents from the external departments, FIR copy or death certificate from the department or medical certificate from the hospitals, that has to be advised or guided to that respective family member, as well as they have to collate and they have to verify complete the documents. Then they have to put the seal and signature, and then they have to advise or guide the respective family members to go and submit to the respective departments to get the benefit. So till the complete benefit reaches to the deceased family member, the HR member or HR person has to extend their complete support. This is in terms of documentation, sir. So another one more thing, one more general question, there is a unemployment benefits, Rajiv Gandhi Shramak Kalyan Yojan. In this category, they have given one more option for the unemployment allowance. This allowance only for the IP member, and this has been categorized under section 61 in the ESIC Act 1948. Minimum 5 years of contribution supposed to be contributed at the time of loss of their job. Unemployment allowance will stop if they get any job or they reaches 60 years, whichever is earlier. The scheme will not be covered for maternity, sickness, or temporary disablement benefit. This allowance for 1 year period of 50% of last 1 year salary will be provided, and that applicant get the daily rate of allowance, that medical treatment or their family also, and the dependent family within the period of unemployment up to 2 years. The dependents will be able to get 2 years of benefits of treatment, and final applicant only can get financial help and medical facilities under this scheme. Applicant loses their regular job due to any dispute or committing any criminal offense, then they will not be entitled to get this kind of unemployment allowance. This is the three major additional information which has been enabled in the ESIC Act. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Vimal. Thank you so much. So, like I was saying, you could see how our empowered panel of experts are ready with answers, and that's how they're waiting to answer your questions. And thank you so much, Vimal, for shedding light on that. Next up, I have Veeresh, and I think Veeresh, I have a first question to you. We've been noticing that the PF, EPS, and EDLI, right, claiming them has been going on. Now, whether e-nomination is mandatory for claiming, well, our PF, EPS, and EDLI.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Yes, I wanted to answer your question. See, currently this e-nomination, EPFO have not made mandatorily. Okay, still they are collecting all the hard copies, but during previous month, during this month, we saw that they have made the Aadhaar as a mandatory, and they have removed all the upload options of Aadhaar and all. Likewise, post this Aadhaar, we are expecting the e-nomination phase will go fastly, and employer has to encourage their employees to update the e-nominations perfectly.
Thanks, Veeresh. So now comes another question. This is pertaining to marriage. So whether nomination submitted prior to marriage is valid, even post-marriage of an employee. If not, how to claim it?
Yeah, this is a precise question that I'm getting from all of our clients, where during initial stage they could have collected the nomination, but maybe employee gets married. Then if employee dies, then the question arrives whether the nomination is valid now to proceed with the same nomination. Not once employee gets married, on that day, the nomination whichever he has done it, that is not applicable. Okay, post that employee has to do the fresh nomination, then he has to give it to HR back, and they have to do a e-nomination as well in a current scenario. Okay, see, employers when they get to know that employees gets married, they have to inform their employees to update their nomination again, and they have to inform them the seriousness and the usefulness of the nomination. Okay, so that during the claiming of the death benefits, nominees will not get that much nominees will get the amount very quickly. Otherwise, they have to struggle. They have to go to legal hire certificate. They have to attest it. Then they have to give it back to employer. They have to attest it. Then it give it back to EPFO to process it. Instead of that, if you are having a valid nomination after marriage, then it will be useful during the time of death benefits withdrawals.
Thank you so much, Veeresh, for that. Now, I just have one more question coming your way. So, who will be the nominee or nominee for the EDLI benefits that people are entitled to, employees are looking for?
Yeah, Greg. See, the nomination for EPF, which we are Form 2, which is having Part 1 and Part 2. Okay, the details whichever we are filling in a Part 1 is applicable for EDLI as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Greg.
Yes, you're most welcome. So, Uday, we are to you. I know you come with the heavy weight of the legal compliance. And here is something that I'm going to ask you first. These are some very direct questions that come to employees and conditions they work in. So when do employers need to compensate an injured employee under the Employee Compensation Act?
See, Employee Compensation Act, an employer is required to compensate an employee only when an employee suffers an accident while performing his work or duty during the work hours, resulting to permanent disability, permanent total disability, permanent partial disability, temporary disability, or death. Or in the event of any disease which is he suffers due to a which is an occupational disease in nature, which is given under Employee Compensation Act Schedule 4, and due to a long service working in a certain circumstances and environment, and where he could encounter certain infections due to the nature of the job, then he will become eligible for such compensation.
Thank you so much, Uday. So now, with the pandemic in focus, I have another question. I'm going to just build on it, like how the lawyers generally take a question, get an answer, and build on it. So, if an employee working in a factory gets infected with COVID-19 and expires, will they be eligible for compensation under the Employee Compensation Act?
It depends on the condition. See, as per Section 3 of the Act, if personal injury is caused to an employee by accident arising out of and in course of his employment, his employer shall be liable to pay the compensation, as I said before, under the provision of the Act. Also, it is applicable if employee is employed in any employment which is specified under Part A of the Schedule 4. So, in that premise of the law, if you see, COVID-19 pandemic is not described to be an occupational disease peculiar to employment of normal factories or establishments. So that may not be applicable. However, having said that, the same shall fall under the category of occupational disease for a frontline hospital worker who works in a COVID center or a diagnostic center where this RT-PCR tests are all undertaken. For them, they are put directly on the work. Their nature of job makes them obligatory to encounter such a situation. So they are highly vulnerable to contracting to the disease. That becomes by nature of their job. So there they may get under the Employee Compensation Act. Not for all.
That's a useful insight. Very insightful. Now, I have another question to you. So under the LWF Act, the Labour Welfare Fund Act, what are the death benefits available to workers?
See, death benefits are various. See, Labour Welfare Fund Act is a state-specific fund governing act. So every state where the act is applicable have their own Labour Welfare Fund board, and the funds have been collected and utilized for the welfare of the workers who are there. And there are various schemes which are been formulated and circulated for the benefit of the employees. There are also states which actually do not have any death benefits as well for labor welfare under the labor welfare fund. But the states like Karnataka, Kerala, Tamilnadu, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Chandigarh, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Haryana, as you stated, have rolled out various schemes. So there is a cash benefit, there is a accidental benefit, cash benefit for accidental death, for natural death, and for ex gratia payments are also given, and funeral expenses. These are the in total, these are the benefits which have been given for death under the labor welfare fund. But again, it depends on state to state. Some states have only natural death and they don't have an accidental death. Certain labor welfare fund board has all together. Certain place they don't have any one of them. So it purely depends upon the schemes which has been formulated and given by the respective state welfare fund board.
Thanks, Uday. That shows how dynamic the situation is, especially in a country like India and the number of states we have and how it can vary from state. Let me bother you with just one more question. What are the benefits under the Payment of Gratuity Act in the event of COVID-19 related death?
See, irrespective of the reason of death, gratuity doesn't term out any reason for death, but for gratuity payment for employees who are alive or partial disablement, they have a different aspect, but continuation of service goes on there. Only in case of permanent disablement and for death cases, the continuation of service is not calculated and the gratuity benefits are passed on to the eligible employees. Having said that, even to calculate at least a year's service and payment of gratuity, last 1 year of service may be calculated for giving the minimal 15 days of gratuity to the employee or his beneficiary.
Thank you so much, Uday. And I think we have had a very productive time in listening to all the answers from you across the chat window. And also, it was very insightful for me to go through this and understand all the various nuances. At the surface level, yes, it is there, it's information. But as we deep dive into each situation, because every situation is a little different from another, and that's what makes the whole work environment in dealing with employees so dynamic and exciting and interesting. And I'm sure all of you have brought and have very clearly shown what 50 years of combined work experience, that's like half a century, all right, of experience in dealing with such issues can go ahead and result. And I'm sure that the 90 minutes that we've had in this session have been wonderful, and the participants, I'm sure, have a wealth of information to take away from us. So with that, this is Gregory signing off, and I thank all of you for your time and the wonderful interactions that we've had. We look forward to the next step where you can expect a recording of this session to be made available to all of you, and also your ready reckoner of all your questions that have been answered by my subject matter experts from Allsec, and goes to show that we focus on building lasting relationships and we care. And remember, we all believe in winning together, and that's the Quess motto that we have, and that's imbibed in all of us. So I would like to finish by saying, stay positive, test negative for COVID, and they always say that knowledge is power, and applied knowledge is even more powerful. So whatever knowledge you have gained in this session, if you can take it and apply it, believe me, you will make a world of difference to one life. And that light lit in a family is definitely going to take the darkness away from them. So I wish you all a sense of empowerment that you carry from this session, so that when you go back to your respective roles and you are faced with questions and situations that are there. And that's why we've called this session the Cognizance on COVID, so that with the knowledge that you gain, you would be able to take this forward, equip you to handle the situation and fight the pandemic on all fronts. So it puts India on a front where we are able to respond to the situation and fight the battle. Like they say, everybody is a warrior, And you are warriors who are going to fight this and help employees get the benefits and also receive all the necessary help that they can get to make sure that this pandemic does not affect them in the best possible way. So, want to wish you all well. Jai Hind. God bless you all. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you all.